Hollywood has sold us the damsel in distress, the victim, always being the victim in situations. And I've noticed in my life, I have not anymore, but like I used to lean towards being the victim in every single situation I was going through. Even if at the hem of the situation, I was like the main problem of whatever is going on in my life, I leaned towards playing the victim card, even if I might have been the villain in that situation. And I think it is an amalgamation of like every single experience and every single media I had like consumed growing up. There's an episode coming out next week, which is like the last 6 years of my life, and I'm going to tell you about. It's not like 6 years yet, but like in January it'll be 6 years. I reflected on the last 6 years of my life, and I noticed that I started following certain type of people. I like being having anxiety publicly was okay. And I'm not saying I don't care about people who have anxiety publicly. I all powers to you, but I've gotten to the point where I would not be willing to divulge information like that. Like trauma bonding. I think a lot of people did that on the internet. You saw people like crying on the internet for various reasons. And this everything I've said so far takes me to my first point, which is low vibrational content. The first example of like a low vibrational content I can possibly like think of right now is like the lyric from Taylor Swift's new album where she said, "I'm not a bad B word and I'm not a savage." And with the way the world is set up for women and the way the world is set up for human beings, if you're not, oh, I'm not trying to, I love y'all, but like, I'm not trying to be mean here, but like, the way the world is set up for men, I don't think you should be proclaiming your shortcomings out for every single person to hear. I know for a fact that I'm not wrong. I don't think you should be proclaiming your shortcomings to the whole world and telling people, I'm not a bad B word, I'm not a savage, I'm just a basic individual. And there's nothing wrong with being basic, but I think hopefully by the end of the podcast, you get where I'm like, coming from. Also, another very low vibrational content I used to I still consume now, but like I get that it's low vibrational. But then I kept the content in a pedestal. And I'm not saying this person is like low vibrational, but the content this person created at a certain period in their life, in like from 2020 to 2023, so it's very low vibrational. And that's Emma Chamberlain vlogs. I was a faithful viewer of her vlogs every single Fridays. Whenever the vlog comes out, I was one of like the first thousands to watch the vlog, and she romanticized loserdom and being alone all of the time. And there's a difference with normalizing mental health issues. And there's a difference with like romanticizing it and making that a crutch to what you're known for. And I think that's what her content was for a very long time. I think like videos where she like if you watch Emma Chamberlain's videos, her old videos, you rarely saw another individual featured on the YouTube video. And to me, now as an adult, like older than like me and Emma were like the same age. So to me, hopefully she thinks of her vlogs the same way now. But like to me, like thinking of the vlogs because I've not watched those vlogs ever. But like thinking of the vlogs, I feel there is an emptiness within that vlog, and it's like, in my opinion, it's mental health porn in a way. Even if she was like getting to stay in like the best hotels. The only people she actually showed were her parents. Like, and when she was dating Tucker, if you don't know who Tucker is like a role model. I Even if they broke up, I think there's a brilliance with having the relationships you have at a certain time in your life being documented. I'm not saying you should like come to the internet and divulge every single thing you do. I don't believe in that. Even if that's what I do on the podcasts in some ways. Like I don't say every single thing on a podcast. But I think if you have like a friend in the moment, and that's what I'm gonna start implementing, like talking to or interviewing people I know at the moment. And even if in the next year or like 6 months we stop talking, there's an episode that's up on this podcast, but it's only audio, and it's like a friend of mine, and we did the episode in like a professional podcast studio. And the guy asked if I wanted a video. I would have just paid for the video because like it's just like just a few pounds extra. But we did like the episode. This episode, it's called A Conversation with Goncalo. That's what the episode is called. And we spoke for an hour. I edited a podcast at the end of the day, blah blah blah. But we are no longer friends. But I can still go back to that episode and listen and like see, oh, I had this friend and we experienced a certain time in life together. And there's I feel being able to like show the relationships you have, friendships, romantic relationship, family members, is essential for documentation on the internet. On the internet, especially with how fabricated everything seems. And I think authenticity in its fullest form is like coming into like the psyche in a big way. If you are listening to this podcast and you're not very politically inclined, this year I have really started swimming in like a very political pond. Like not in like a big ocean yet, but like in a very political pond. And that's a metaphor, obviously. But because I did the fascism episode, because I really wanted to learn a lot more about fascism, and I did Is White Rights, the episode early this year. So I've been really like getting into politics and like Trump and Kamala's presidential like election last year. I was like really in the weeds of it, um, trying to like find out what's going on, blah blah blah. So recently there was like a New York mayoral like election. There was a New York election for the mayors, for like the mayor seat or whatever. And there's this guy called Zoran Memdani. I don't know if I pronounced that name right, but whatever. No, not whatever. I'm so sorry if I don't pronounce the name right. And he is just speaking truth. And he's not like he's not being super like polished, like being ultra media trained. I think a lot of people. I read a Substack. No, sorry, not a Substack. I read an article from Edward NFL's like magazine called EE72. I'll try and like link my Arca on the description. Arca is like an app where you can listen to sorry, not listen, an app where you can yeah, you can also listen on Arca if like, this is a podcast curated it. But it's like an app where you can curate what you read and what like your media and like what you enjoy and like put it in like a folder. And I can share my folder if you want to like take a look at what I read every single week. Or like I don't put every single thing I read, but like whatever I read, and I think it makes sense for the two folders I have up, then I'll put it out. The two folders I have up right now are sounds fun, like whatever I like read and I think it sounds fun, or I think people would read it and like enjoy it. I put it on that folder, and I also like have a folder called Learning School. Like I think learn not I think Learning School, and I just like paste like learning tips on there on like how I like I'm trying to like develop my learning skills and the art, sorry, not act, but the art of like learning. But back to what I was talking about. In EE 77 there was an article called We Should Speak Human Again. And it was like talking about the corporate jargons that people type when they're like writing emails or like very academic papers, the way it sounds. And I think we face the same thing with like politicians. Like when they're like speaking, they're never direct. They're not direct with their speech. And if you listen to Where's My Mind in 23, I did an episode of like the Jordan Peterson book, The 12 Rules of Life, and there's a rule there called that says be direct to your speech. But I think being direct to your speech is like the best thing you can possibly do. I think people who are very low vibrational on the content, I think they're very passive. I think being passive aggressive or passive in any form is a victim state. I think that's the true line of victimization. I think people always want to be, they never want to be blamed for whatever goes on, if that makes sense. They can feign ignorance or like feign, like they can like say that they did not cause the issue happening, or they can say whatever whatever may happen or whatever happened was never their fault because they never interacted with the situation. I read a Substack this week. I can't remember the title, but it said, "Oh yeah, it's also on my Arca. Just if you read all the articles I put on my Arca, it's not so much. It's just 8 so far, but I'm gonna start like posting a lot more on there. But if you read all the articles, there was a woman who made a list for 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds to like read. Like that's what the like Substack is called. And an advice there is you should take risk. And when you take risks, not every single thing, and I'm not speaking from experience, I'm just speaking from like my brain. But like when we take risk, not every single thing that we experience or risk or attempt will come to fruition. We might fail, and for the longest time, I've been a failure. I've not been a failure my whole life, but I failed a lot in my life, and I have learned from. I think I learn more from failing than I learn from success because when I succeed at something, I wonder what the solution was. But when I fail, I know how not to fail again. Does that make sense? I hope that made sense.
Hi, editing Clinton here. I don't agree with the full statement. I don't think if you succeed every single time, or if you fail every single time, you have like the grounds to not fail again. I think if you fail and then succeed at something, then you know what went wrong. But I think if you constantly fail, it's because you fail to realize the mistake you're making, that you're not putting in enough effort. And then I was thinking of like the podcast and how unsuccessful it is. And the fact that week after week I come here and like discuss with you about different topics that are on my mind, but at the same time I know that there is like a lack in like the views and like stuff. So I think like there's like a failure there that I'm like not like working towards. So I don't think if you fail every single time, you learn how not to fail. I think if you fail every single time, you think of that failure as a norm in some circumstances. And I'm using like the podcast as like a like a grand theory of like this thought pattern. I've not like really thought of this. I was just editing this and I truly disagreed with the point I made. And I really wanted to like clarify my thoughts on that. But failures coming soon. By me saying failures coming soon, I mean like an episode on like failing and failure and like the act and the acceptance of failure is something I want to like discuss as this podcast goes on. And yeah, thank you so much for listening to my thoughts. And this is my morning voice. Do you like it? Because I'm listening to it and I like it. So, yeah. Bye.
I don't think anybody on the planet should say this statement. I don't care about other people's opinion about me or like what people think about me. I think there's a strong incentive to be concerned about how you're being perceived. And I'm not saying you should consider this and then go into like a shell of like a human being and like go into like a bubble where you retreat and not like interact with people in your day to day. I feel there's a very big need to care about what people say about you and like listen to like criticism. And yes, your opinion about yourself should be your number one opinion, but listen to your surrounding voices and see how you can adjust your opinion. Like a lot of, especially if you're like big headed, your opinion about yourself could be like very self grandiose, like very self audacious. Like I'm the best person in the world. Or if your mindset is very victim oriented, you lean towards thinking of yourself as less than and lower. I unfortunately exist in the latter camp where I think my thoughts are not good enough. Even if I record this podcast weekly, but my thoughts are not good enough. I like I said from the beginning of the podcast, I have been a conscious victim. I consciously victimize myself. There are the ways I know I victimize myself, and like now I don't care about like being a victim. I think there's a need for you to care about what other people think about you, because you can't live in a silo. You can live in a space where you're the only one who exists. You have to live with other people. And I'm not saying you should care about what every single person says about you, but I think you should consider what, like I said from the introduction of this point, I think we should consider where they're coming from and if they are people we want to associate with. And maybe if they're not people you want to associate, maybe you like retract, know that, oh, that's not my vibe, and I'm actually not going to take this as truth. It's good to listen and consider what people say about yourself, because I think a lot of people, whenever they're being laughed at, they put yourself in like the victim box because everyone is making fun of me. But I think there is joy and consideration of being the clown. I started watching Quenlin Blackwell late last year, and people laugh at Gwen. And like it's when I started watching Gwen and I noticed that when people laugh at you, even if they're laughing at you, remember you're like bringing you're bringing smiles to like other people's faces. And yeah, think of it that way. I know it like hurts when, let's say, you go to like a party or you go somewhere and people just laugh at your appearance, and that hurts a lot. But I think there is a strength and a victor mindset, not a victim mindset, but a victor mindset in owning that insecurity or that shortcoming and making it a bit. So, like, leaning towards it and also fixing what people make fun of you about. And if it's unfixable, living with it. Um, I think a lot of people now, like in recent years, and I get why people do it. And I'm not like encouraging violence, but at the same time, I'm not saying you should not be aggressive. I think a lot of people are like being weaklings, or I've seen a lot of people whenever like situations happen, they pull up their phone. Like the woman who was like calling a black woman slurs. She's like Indian, by the way. She's not white. Because I know everybody likes to think it's only white people, but it's not. The Indian woman was like calling the woman the N word. And I was like, I'm not trying to be mean, but like, I will hit you. I was going to hit the black. I really, not obviously, I will not hit the black woman, but like, I was like, I feel really disappointed for this like black woman, not the Indian woman, because like, if she did that to me, I will insult her too. Let's go song for song. Let's go back to back. fix your effing self, kiss my ass for that. Because I will also insult you and your culture. Sorry, shoot me, shoot me, shoot me. I think a lot of people are being weaklings, and whenever anything happens, they're pulling up their phone to just record and being like record someone abusing you. That's insane. If anybody from any race insults me, I will insult you back. Not on the internet, obviously, but privately. I'm not pulling out my phone. I will insult you, and if I see you pull out your phone, I will walk away. I'm not going to play the internet game. I don't care enough about the internet. If you call me a slur, if I hear it, I will call you a slur back or something equal to that. And I know that I like because if you do that, the person like I call this person. I think think of any slurs because I'm not like a slurrer. But like I call this person maybe the N word, and this person called me a slur like of I don't even know any slurs with any other like race, but I know insult there are stereotypes for other races. So I would just say that. I think with the victim mindset, a lot of people like pull out their phones to like capture their abuses, and I think a lot of people fail to like stand up for themselves and like fight for what they believe is like true or like right. And I don't think every single victor is always right. I look at superheroes. I don't think every single victor is always right, but they never back down in a fight. And when I was younger, I used to back down on fights and let people exist in a space where they think they can like control like the narrative. But I think owning your narrative and being able to like control whatever is going on in your life, I think that's the best thing you can possibly do. I don't think you should. I don't think like I okay. I started writing like things I found inspirational or like thoughts I've had, and I saw this video that is linked on my archive. I'm not trying to get followers on archive because you have to download the app, and the app is waitlisted. So it takes you like 6 weeks to get the app. So it's not like I'm trying to like get you to like follow me, but I just want you to read and like see what I consume. But whatever. Um, what I wrote down was you are not a passive viewer or like you're not experiencing your life passively. You're actively constructing your life. There's no way on the planet every single thing that brought like that made you who you are now, watching this podcast or like listening to this podcast or whatever you're doing or like seeing this podcast on TikTok is from every single decision you made from 5 years old. Even if you think you're not making a decision at five, you are. Yes, you are. Yes. Um, and I think a, and I also saw this. I also want to give solutions in this episode, and I have. I also want to give solutions in this episode. Your brain, this the same article or the same video. Yeah, the same video. It says your brain can't protect you and grow at the same time. When you're scared of things, that's how your brain protects you. Your brain protects you because oh, you're scared of like you're scared of talking to people. Don't talk to them. Maybe they'll make fun of you. Maybe they'll make fun of the way you talk. Then you never do it. But your brain does not grow from your fears. Your brain grows from you conquering your fears and knowing that oh, I literally touched the hot pot. It's not that hot. I can touch it again. So I know that's a bad example, but like you get my drift. Um, so I think I'm not saying you should go and jump off a building. That's not the advice I'm giving, but I'm saying you should like stop being a victim. Pick up the phone, call your grandma, say, "Grandma, I know you died like 2 weeks from now, but I'm joking, obviously. Don't say that. But say, um, how are you doing?" Or text someone, and even like this always used to happen to me, but like whenever I texted people, I always had a problem with like texting replying so quickly. But I think replying is chic. And no matter what happens, tomorrow has passed and we only exist in the present. We can never exist in the future. Today was a future for yesterday me, but now it's the present. You can only exist in the present. And I think a lot of the times we put things off for like the future. And I have this like TikTok I saved, and I'm gonna try as much as possible to like link it to my archive so you can see whatever I'm talking about. But and it's a movie where this person says they put every single thing off, and they were turning like 50, and they said they're like 50 and they lived this life, but they put off every single thing. And when they were 20, they wanted to travel the world, but they were like, oh, when I turned 30, and now they're 50 and they have not seen past their hometown. And I think when we put off things because of the future, which is not real, the future doesn't exist. The only point in time that exists is now. The past doesn't exist as well. The past already happened. There's not they No matter how much you have on in your bank account, you can go back in time. You literally can go back in time. You and a poor, it's the same time. Elon Musk can go back in time. So yeah, and Elon Musk is a victim. Yeah, that man is. I know we all know I don't like Elon Musk on this podcast, but whatever. So yeah, I think that's all my thoughts on like being a victim. I think we should pull back the curtains of being seen as victims all the times. I think all the time, not all the time, but I think we should be the proprietors and like the directors and like the orchestrators of our lives. We should not leave it. We should live actively, not passively. And remember, your brain always wants to protect you, but you should always know when to take that risk. And the biggest like point from this whole episode is realize the content you consume that like feeds your victim narrative. I was watching Nick Fuentes on Tucker Carlson because I like watching the left and the right. I'm not left or right, everybody knows that, but like the way he speaks is very he lives in a victim mindset. That's the best way. I don't agree. They will not attack me because they'll never see this video, but like I if this ever goes viral, the way he spoke on that interview was very woe is me. And this whatever he's talking about happened years ago. I'm like, chill. Like I hate that means I used to do it. That's why I hate people who do it. Like if something happened like in like your childhood and then you're like that's why I'm the way I am today because this happened. I'm like, shut the hell up and shoot yourself in the eyeball with a gun because I think there's this like nobody cares. Like at the end of the day, there's no amount of story you're gonna tell me. Like even if you lost your arm in a war zone, like nobody, it's already happened. There's nothing anybody can do. The pity will only breed your like it's I don't know how to explain. It's a very disgusting feeling, and I don't feel pity for anybody. The only people I feel pity for are the people who are currently experiencing hard times, which are children in Gaza because there's nothing they can possibly do because they're living in a war zone. But like outside those kids, like there's nobody else I pity. Sorry. Like if you have like even if you don't have arms and legs, if you can breathe, I don't pity. Sorry, but I feel I don't know. I feel something else for them, but I don't feel pity for them because I don't think feeling pity for people is a good like it's something I don't think it's good to feel pity for people. But yeah, because you can stand up and do whatever. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say. I hate victims. That's not what episode. That's not what the episode is titled. Thank God. But like, I'll speak to you next week on a different episode. I'm gonna be here every single week. I was having a chat with myself. I have a journal now. Not a journal. It's kind of a journal. So I have like two books. One in my bag that I take everywhere, and one next to the bed where I sleep. And I write thoughts on different opinions. So like I watched a podcast this morning. It's called In Your Dreams by Owen Thiel. It's like a funny podcast, and Alex Cooper was on the podcast, and she was talking about her podcast that she like works on, and she was talking about how she like edits and like film a certain day, and like obviously she has an editor, and the editor like does every single thing, and then she uses 6 hours to like edit. Maybe I don't know, but she says she edits for like her podcast for like 6 hours and like picks clips and blah blah blah. And I was like, there is this sanctity with like having your craft and being able to like control it from the inside out. But yeah, what book did I read this week? I can't remember, but I read a book this week. What's the name of that book? I finally finished Before You Say Goodbye. I finished that book. I'm reading A Little Life, and I also read a book this week. I can't remember the name of the book, so it's so annoying. Oh yeah, Black Notice. That's the name of the book. It's just a really good book. I really liked the ending of that book. It was really I did not suspect who like the hacker was, but yeah, it was really close to home though. But truly, that's all that has been on my mind. I'll speak to you next week. Bye. And it's Christmas. The Christmas lights are out. Bye.